Welcome back to Season 4, Round 9 of TRWOW. By a close vote, this round's results are in high-quality PowerPoint format, akin to Epsilon's TRWOW All-Stars. This episode's title is That's Both Terrifying and Lovely to Hear, courtesy of Arnu. He's absolutely right. This episode, either Labor 41, Rhyme, or Arnu himself, will meet the end of their TRWOW journey, while the other two will move on to the finale. Before we get on to this round's results, let's see what the contestants had to say. Starting with the eulogies, I received one from Evrion. She said, "Fourth my total standings, it's more likely than you think." This trial has been extremely fun to say the least. Each prompt has felt like a joy to respond to, even if I didn't have the time or the ideas. The memories I have, I cherish too. Waking up at 1 a.m. to make and submit my round 2 winner, while looking out of the window of some hotel in Central Florida, murmuring Domo Genesis's Red Corolla, is something I'll always find hilarious to remember. Overall, I'm incredibly grateful to have played in this. From the highs and the lows, it was truly worth it. Anyways, see you all in Season 5, and good luck to the semi-finalists. Peace! Thank you, everyone. It was incredible seeing you completely dominate this game, and I'm glad you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed watching you. Moving on to confessionals, Lateworm41 said, "I'm scared." That's all for confessionals and eulogies. Moving right along, in case you forgot, this round's prompt was, all the world's animals banded together to rebel and overthrow the humans. The rebellion almost succeeded, except the humans took advantage of one particular animal's traits, behaviors, or abilities, which helped them defeat the rebellion. Which animal was this, and how was it taken advantage of? Our final 3 came up with 3 creative responses each to this prompt. This round, instead of revealing all the contestants' responses at once, as we traditionally do, I'll be revealing everyone's third responses, then second responses, and then first responses, to create suspense and ensure this reveal isn't over in like 3 minutes. Without further ado, it's time to begin. Previous round winner Lateworm41 is up first. His worst scoring response was, homesick bats use echolocation to write letters, mistakenly being caught by ultrasonic detectors. Instead of violence, this response takes the equally important psychological approach, which often determines the outcome in wars, as morale often does. Will it determine Lateworm's success or failure in this round? Let's find out. With a score of 59.38% with just your worst response, Lateworm, you're definitely in the driver's seat going into this round. Is this the beginning of your redemption arc? We'll just have to wait and see. Next up is last round's silver medalist, Rhyme. Their worst scoring response was, put expired cheese in mouse traps. If they get it, food poisoning kills them. If not, the traps do. I like the win-win scenario pictured in this response. Out of all the responses this round, I think this is the most realistic, if that can be even ascertained, and I think it's the most simply worded. It's a classic idea that was executed well, but let's see what the voters thought. "42.71% isn't a terrible score for a third response, but look at that standard deviation. 36.61% is absolutely polarizing." Last up for third responses is last round's third placer, Arnoob. His worst scoring response was, mayflies breed fast to offset short lifespans. Human fog of war exercises make swarms favorable. This was actually an animal fact that I didn't know coming into this round. Maybe it's because I'm not particularly knowledgeable on mayflies, but regardless, the more you know. Were the voters aware of this mayfly trivia? Let's see. It seems they weren't. With only 28.13%, Arnoob's standard deviation of 29.81% is actually higher than his raw score. That's not a bad nifty feat myself, if I do say so myself. To quickly recap, Lateworm 41 is by far and away in the lead with 59%, with Rhyme in second at 42. Arnoob is currently in the bottom with only 28% in his third response. Before we reveal second responses, however, it's time to move on to a dummy break. That's right, in case you forgot, 3 people, myself, 4 Dice, and Neutrality, submitted dummies for this round. Out of the 3 dummies, the one that scored the lowest was 4 Dice. Well, I mean, even if you scored the lowest out of us 3, that doesn't necessarily mean that you got a low score altogether. Let's see. 4 Dice's dummy was: by luring animals to picnic, millions of ants showed up and annoyed them for long enough to give up. Good old divide and conquer. Let's see if this tried and true tactic performed as well as it did historically. Well, I mean, a score of 31.82% isn't going to win any prizes, but look on the bright side. This is your highest scoring dummy response yet, 4 Dice, and it broke the 30% barrier. Good job. The second best placing dummy was mine. Climbing inside whales enabled stealthy underwater attacks. Rising from blowholes to prize foes. I was actually thinking of the Super Mario movie when I was making this response. You know, the scene where Mario and DK work together to escape the deep sea creature? I mean, I didn't explicitly reference it in this response, but hopefully the voters enjoyed it, right? I guess they didn't. I mean, I can't complain though. I came up with this response in mere minutes. With 4 Dice and myself revealed, this naturally means that Neutrality had the highest scoring dummy. We'll get back to him a bit later, though. For now, it's time to move on to second responses. Welcome back, Lateworm. Lateworm's second placing response was: bees made an animal flower alliance. Humans took houseplants hostage globally, forcing concessions. Aw, poor Flora, getting involved in the war of the flora. Sorry, in the war of the fauna. How far will Lateworm's lead extend with this multifaceted response? Let's find out. It seems not that far. With a score of 61.48%, however, he's jumped by only 2%. Though, he now towers over second place Rhyme with nearly 20%, and over Arnoob by a whopping 33%. Let's see if Rhyme's second response can catch him up. Rhyme said, "Those slow turtles couldn't run from kids who learned to stomp their shells in from hours of Mario." Oh, speaking of the Mario movie, just as I was in my dummy myself. I personally love references to pop culture in 12 responses, and I also appreciate how this is the only response which uses single uninterrupted clause without any comma or full stop breaks in the middle. I think that made it flow really well, but we'll have to see what the voters thought. Oof, a score of 42.71% is exactly the same as your third response. You better hope that this trend doesn't continue for your final response, Rhyme. On the flip side, this is the perfect opportunity for Arnoob to make up that 14% gap. Arnoob's second response was being incredibly racist against red noses. Reindeer stab circus animals, disrupting their own side. Ooh, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. As I stated with Rhyme, I love references in 12 responses, and even if this isn't pop culture per se, it's a creative use of a classic children's nursery rhyme that applies well to this prompt. Also, great job linking those two distant concepts, being circus animals and red-nosed reindeer. Did the voters appreciate it as much as I did? Let's see. Oof, seems they didn't. With some extremely tough competition in the final 3, this response only got 31.25%. Arnoob remains significantly behind going to the first response, but remember, one good response is all it takes to be declared safe. After 2 responses are revealed, each contestant remains in exactly the same rank. with percentages not changing by much, or at all in Rhyme's case. Before we reveal the first responses, however, it's time to move on to Dummy Break 2, courtesy of Neutrality. Neutrality said, Pufferfish inflate on attack, allowing capture. Inserting bombs, bodily grenades become explosions. Seems that he had a similar idea as me, going with a water-based approach. We even went with a similar sneak attack theme, but it seems Neutrality's increased emphasis on explosions, beloved explosions, lent itself to a better score than me. Let's see how much higher that was. Neutrality secures an excellent score of 50.76%, just above the 50% average threshold. Good job. You're also currently beating both Arnoob and Rhymes' second responses, so that's certainly an accomplishment. Good job. Now, the moment you've been waiting for. It's time to declare our survivors as we move on to first responses. Although he maintains a commanding lead, Lateworm 41 isn't declared safe just quite yet. His highest placing response was Antlers were the keys that opened complex locks. Deer shed them, giving humans access to headquarters. Like Lateworm's third response, this response actually didn't advocate for violence as well, but instead takes an espionage approach. I gotta say, it's a super creative concept taking a part of animal anatomy that I wouldn't even think twice about. Let's see how high the voters placed this creative response. With a staggering 81.25%, Lateworm 41 manages to score the second highest average percentile of this entire season, only eclipsed by Everyon's third round win. It doesn't take a genius to realize whether Lateworm is going to be safe or not, but regardless, we still have to proceed with formalities. Our next and penultimate reveal is Rhyme's first response, which was suicide bombing bats are deceived by echo-producing decoys. They're blind as a bat after all. Rhyme wrote the other bat response, alongside Lateworm's third. Unlike Lateworm's third, however, this one takes a more explosive approach, though both did use echolocation as the main gimmick. Did this cause Rhyme's response to sandblast, or was it enough of a distinction for the voters to appreciate? Let's find out. It's Lateworm 41 versus Rhyme for the first spot into the finale. To nobody's surprise, Lateworm 41 is the first contestant to advance on to the finale. Good job. Also, it seems the voters actually preferred this response to Lateworm's bat response, seeing as it placed about 3% higher, at 62.50%. Will that be enough to secure Rhyme's safe spot? It's all down to Arnoob to answer that question and decide the second finalist. Arnoob's best scoring response was, wanting revenge for being attacked at night, the sun sweeps the lions, hence melting other animals. I believe this is a reference to the Lion King, though I do like the prospect of humans being able to control the literal sun, if that's what this response is implying instead. Now, the moment you've been waiting for. Arnoob has over 30% to climb to reach the safety threshold of 62.50%. Will he soar to the top like a phoenix rising from the ashes, or will he fall just short of glory? Let's see what the voters had to say. And with a score of only 40.623%, Arnoob goes home with the bronze, while Rhyme advances onto the final stage of the game. I'm sorry, Arnoob, but your responses just weren't able to make the cut this round, and unfortunately, that's all it takes to be eliminated. Goodbye, good luck, and thank you for playing. But before we formally part ways with Arnoob, I'd like to go through every eliminated alumni and give a short speech about them. I think it's about time that they receive a long overdue farewell for their accomplishments this season. Here we go. In 10th, Quartz. In terms of TRWOW efficiency champions, you've been absolutely killing it. From your near efficiency champion run in Season 3, to being the alumni who had the lowest predicted chance of winning the game, at only 0.098%, you were certainly up against a steep hill going to the final 10. Sadly, it turns out the predictions were too good to be true, or too true to be good, and you were the first alumni out. Thank you for sticking around to give TRWOW another shot after Season 3, and I hope you had as much fun here as I had in your camps. Stay lazy, my friend. In 9th place, Makana Croft. Makana, your responses have had the unique distinction of either making me absolutely love them or have absolutely no idea what you're trying to say. For example, testament to your nickname and your best words this season, I loved your walk in the park response. I can't say the same for your futuristic Kale response in round 2, however. Still, you certainly pulled out your aces to get your 2 prizes in round 1 and 4, and showed that you were no pushover. A well-deserving alumni, thank you for playing, Makana. In 8th, Reed. If you told me the round 1 scrape would eventually reach alumni, I probably would not have believed you. Yet here we are. After a rocky beginning, you managed to bounce back amazingly, to the point where you cucked for the prize just 2 rounds later. Sadly, your emoji response was only as good as it was serious, and you cucked for safety in round 6. If there's one last silver lining though, it's that your final placement was a multiple of 4. Just like your nickname predicted. I'm glad you joined the season and never gave up until the end, Reed. In 7th, Daybloom Crow. What a great coincidence that one of my oldest friends in this community happened to re-emerge and even start their own TRWOW at the same time I did. Hosting our TRWOWs in tandem and learning from each other has been a blast, and I hope you felt the same. For TRWOW in particular, I loved how your responses always tried something new. From algebraic equations to literally writing in German, your responses have always been a blast to read. It's a shame you couldn't quite come back to your former glory and take home the gold like you did in JR Season 1. But 7th place is not anything to scoff at. Well done. In 6th place, Normal Ben. Your performance this season has quite literally been the epitome of a roller coaster of emotions. From placing bottom 5 in the first 2 rounds, to literally winning your first ever TRWOW rounds, back to back, to scraping, and then eventually dying. Your journey has without a doubt been the most entertaining to watch out of any contestants'. Even though you were efficient early game, you've shown that you are truly a powerhouse when you give it your all. Well done on 6th place and your first alumni, Ben. In 5th, Epsilon. Now we say goodbye to the person who inspired many aspects of this TRWOW, from the splitting of the prompts and voting channel, to super voter reviews, to this very results video. Epsilon, it's a shame you didn't manage to prize this season, because you were a power player for sure, though an inconsistent one at that. You prize cucked twice, but also scraped twice, true to the nickname it gave you of not quite black and white. You're the only alumni who participated in both Seasons 2 and 3, so thank you for sticking around and supporting TRWOW all this time. I'm happy to see your efforts finally pay off with the completion of this season. In 4th, Evrion. I think I speak on behalf of everyone when I say that your elimination was the most surprising this season by far. Not only did you manage to win 4, that is half of the 8 rounds you participated in, but your elimination score of 50% was also really high. Sadly, one mediocre performance was all it took to go home in the late game. Your responses were always a blast to read, and I'm glad you enjoyed the season as much as I did, watching you utterly dominate on the game. You're an absolute beast, and I hope we see more of your abilities in TRWOW in the future. Keep it up, everyone. And finally, in 3rd, Arnoob. In poetic fashion, our 2 frontrunners have been eliminated back to back. Looking back at the previous rounds, I'm surprised to see you only prize once, all the way back in round 1. Your accomplishments are not to be overlooked though, as you played an incredible game, even overtaking Evrion in standardized ranks in round 5. My favorite response of yours, and probably one of my favorites this season's, was your Love is in the air. Wrong. Gas leak. Response back in round 7. Sadly, it seems the Princeton powerhouse was not meant to be, and round 9 was the end for you. It was a joy hosting you, and you truly deserve the bronze medal. Well done, Arnoob, and goodbye. Here's the full leaderboard for this round. Lateworm managed to get a whopping 6 first place votes, which secured his victory by nearly 20%. Just to emphasize again, Lateworm's first response is the second highest score of this entire season. Interestingly enough, Rhyme's highest scoring response actually didn't receive a single first place vote, even from the owners themselves. The least controversial response was Lateworm's second, while the most controversial was Rhyme's third. Here's the graph of scores over time, where you can really see Lateworm's dominance. The only vote where Lateworm wasn't winning was the first, which was Arnoob's vote. And even then, Lateworm was the highest response that Arnoob placed. That wasn't his. On the other hand, you can see the slow decline of Arnoob. Looking at the more clear ranks over time graph, there's a more stark realization. At votes 5 and 8, Lateworm was winning with all 3 of his responses, which is just absolutely insane. Well done. Well, at long last, after 53 eliminations, here we are. Round 10, the finale. It's Lateworm 41, the front-runner contender from the early game, who's come back with a vengeance against Rhyme, the procrastinator who has yet to win a prize. 2 TRWOW newcomers are about to face off to be crowned the champion of Season 4. Your final prompt is: your country has just elected its first AI robot president. What's an unforeseen consequence of this? That's it. I'm keeping it short and sweet for the finale. Finalists, you've got 3 responses to make, with 100 characters maximum for each. I will see you in the final episode. Goodbye and good luck.